Am I the a-hole by Forks clone? Would I be the a-hole for hiding a family heirloom so my dad can't give it to his fiancée? My great grandmother was an exceptional embroiderer. She would cut massive canvases. She never taught me. I taught myself later in life, but I loved seeing her work when we went to her house. She died when I was 14. A few years ago, my grandmother gave our family one of her final pieces for Christmas. It's been hanging in the stairway ever since. Last year my father started dating this horribly toxic woman, who in 6 months had destroyed my dad's relationships with all his children, grandchildren. In March, he abandoned the family home to my brother and I. We've been paying the mortgage and then rent the last few years, long story, to try and help him keep it. We've been working all summer to clean it put before we move out in 2 weeks. I figured I'd take the picture. I embroider too. It's been kind of special to me. But 2 nights ago my father shows up at the house saying he wants to give it to his girlfriend, cause he thinks it goes with the decor at her cabin. I said I wanted it, and he said no, it was his to do what he wanted with it. He left it here though. Would I be the asshole for taking it anyway? It's my family too, and the piece means something to me. He just thinks it would look nice in the girlfriend's cabin. I know my dad will be pissed if it disappears, and I have places to keep it till I move, but do I have a right to take it, or am I just being petty? You are an AH if you take it. But listen, sometimes it's necessary to be an AH. This is one of those times. Take it and hide it now. I agree. Take it and keep it for you. Most of my family is gone, but I have my grandma's dining room table. She taught me to bake, and we would always use the dining room table to prep. I'm glad I have it. The op should ask herself what her grandmother would have wanted. For the piece to stay in the family, where it will be cherished as an heirloom, or for it to be passed on to the dad's current girlfriend, because he thinks it'll look good in her cabin. My man is firmly on the first one there. I mean, this girlfriend sounds awful, and toxic people tend to have toxic relationships. He's only been with her a few months, so there's every chance the honeymoon phase of this relationship will wear off. Here's hoping he wises up and dumps her. Op should take it and keep it. Honestly, I wouldn't even admit taking it. If they want to avoid conflict, they could start packing boxes and claim it might have accidentally got lost when their friends came over and helped pack. Shit gets lost and moves all the time. But act fast. NTA, and you're absolutely right. If it were me, I'd rather keep it in my family, where I know it will be cared for, than give it to a toxic person who will either A, destroy it, B, sell it to the highest bidder, or C, just toss it. If I were the op, I wouldn't even trust her with an embroider piece that was already messed up, let alone an heirloom that was made at the end of a relative's life. Op, tell him you've sent it away to be professionally cleaned. It may take some time. If he remembers later, tell him that as it's a family heirloom, you were going to present it to his girlfriend as a wedding present. If the relationship gets that serious, Op said grandma gave it to her, so she has absolutely every right to take it. Honestly, I would hide it and say during Christmas I will give it to you for X, Y, and Z then. ABD, because you know how to embroider, I would make a copy of it, but leave a big enough distinction that you and your brother, maybe, can tell which is which. Like a different colored thread in a flower or a hidden signature. I doubt he would notice, since it's been a while. A large intricate embroidery isn't something you just whip up in time for Christmas. They don't deserve a copy. We need an additional rating, JAP or justified R. Some of the posts on here, technically PPL, would be enough for not going to their sister's wedding, not buying a gift for their parent, or keeping a family heirloom, but then, if it's to protect themselves or their family, it can absolutely be a justified response. There's a huge difference in perspective. Op sees this as a family heirloom. Dad sees this as merely a decoration that will look nice in the house of a non-family member. Dad isn't valuing this the way it should be. Just like he didn't value the house. At some point it will get abandoned just like the house. he is dishonoring the inheritance. And that is another thing. It doesn't truly belong to dad. It belongs to the family and should stay in the family. Dad isn't the only one that gets a vote in this. The other family members get a vote too. NTA edit. Grandma gave this to the family, not your dad, right? That means dad only has partial ownership. If it is you, your brother, and dad, then you have majority rule. Feel free to buy dad out of his share if he makes a stink. NTA. Be a bit of a dick. You have the choice of being a pussy and getting fucked, or being a dick and fucking an asshole. Much more noble. There is a picture in my family that was always promised to me. It is of some of my paternal relatives. I'm named after one of the people in the photo. After my father bounced, his family tried all kinds of shady shit to get it back. My mom asked a trusted friend to hold it for us. So whenever his family would ask her, "Do you have the pic?" she could honestly answer, "No." To this day, it hangs proudly in my dining room, and I just a sliver of joy knowing his family would spit nails if they knew I still had it. Am I petty? Yes. The father left the family in the house. He just wants it because it looks nice, but Op wants to keep it because it means something to him/her. In my opinion, the father lost all rights towards the heirloom the moment he left. Op take it and hide it. Clearly NTA. Edit. Also Op mentioned grandma got it for the whole family, so it doesn't T only belong to the father. I had to be an R, and my dad was one by proxy, to get a jade clock that my grandparents got in Alaska in the 70s. My uncle and aunt were going to send it with my grandfather to his memory care facility, and I could just see it disappearing. And we wouldn't realize till my grandfather died. Dad and I live in a different state. Aunt and uncle don't care about the clock. To my uncle it isn't an heirloom because it is something his mom and dad got. Dad eventually prevailed for me, and I have my rock clock, as my son put it, on the mantle. Also, sometimes you get things just by being in the right place at the right time. I have my grandfather's wedding ring because he saw it while I was visiting him and asked if I wanted it. I didn't say no. It is a cool ring. So Op, you have a choice. Take the embroidery and always remember your grandma's talent and love, or possibly regret the fact your dad's current girlfriend has a lovely piece of artwork that she will probably Goodwill in a few years, especially if they break up. My mom is loopy this way, and I've had to take things that have sentimental value to me because she pawns and gives things away with no thought to anyone. It's wrong, but sometimes being wrong is okay. Just because you're bad guy does not mean you're the bad guy. NTA. Your grandmother gave it to your family, not to your father alone. I'd say that this gives you, your father and your brother equal say over what happens to it. This means that you and your brother get to outvote your father if you do not want a family heirloom to be offered up as a trinket to somebody who never met your grandmother. Actually, given that your dad abandoned the family home, leaving the embroidery behind, I would argue that he forfeited any right to a say on its fate. Ask yourself what your grandmother would say if she was here. Would she want you to have it, or your father's fiancé? I say fold it and put it in a bank safety deposit box. That's where I keep the family treasures I don't want others getting to. NTA. It is a family heirloom that belongs to the family. Your father should not be giving it away to a non-family member, especially when family members want it. Family heirlooms should stay in the family. Maybe you should also speak to your grandmother about how your father wants to give the heirloom away and you would like to keep it in the family. Unless grandma is haunting the place, that might be a tad difficult. Time to break out the Ouija board. A seance. Necessary asshole. Go for it. I'm studying family and inheritance law, and I was discussing this very subject with my boss at the courthouse last week. Let me give you a tip here that he gave me that is completely legal, but unethical. Roughly speaking, property can either have a register, car, house, or not, such as is the case of the embroidery work of your grandma. If there is no register, then technically it doesn't exist. There is literally no paper trail to prove that said heirloom exists. If he can't prove it exists, he can't sue you or get the police to go to your house to search for it. And if, by any miracle, he can prove it exists, he can't prove it belongs to him. You could have found it in the trash for all any judge and the police knows. Worst case scenario, he has old photos of the picture. You can just say you know nothing about it. No matter the case, it's his word against yours, and since he'd be the one accusing you, it's his job to prove he's right, not yours to prove he's not. That being said, take your picture with you, and, from now on, treat it like it never existed at all. If he asks about it, say that you have no idea what happened to it. Tell your siblings to do the same. I'm sure they're on your side on this, and if they are not, treat them the same way. The picture never existed. Don't say you hid it. He could be recording it, and that would be used against you.